Hi everyone, I am Samantha Santiano. Today I'll be presenting on the Flint water crisis. This case is one of the most significant examples of public administration failure in recent U.S. history. I'll be using Holzer and Schwester, Chapter 5 on ethics, to analyze what went wrong, what ethical frameworks help us to understand the crisis, and what lessons we can take away for future administrators. Ultimately, this presentation is about showing how ethics isn't just about theory, it's about a foundation for effective governance. So, a short introduction. The purpose of my presentation is to translate theory into practice by analyzing a real-world crisis through an ethical lens, which we've learned through this class. The Flint water crisis is not just about contaminated water, it's about decision-making, leadership, and how ethics help shape the lives of everyday citizens like you and me. We'll see how financial pressure and political control led to decisions that put thousands and thousands of people in danger. By the end of this video, I want to show you how the ethical frameworks help us make sense of these events and guide administrators towards better decisions in the future. A quick case overview. In 2014, Flint officials switched the water source from the Detroit system to the Flint River. This decision was made to save money during a financial crisis, but it quickly turned into a public health disaster. The river was highly corrosive, and without the proper treatment, it caused lead to leach into old pipes. It led to lead to leach from old pipes into the city's drinking water, which would be like LA switching to the LA River and us drinking from that water. Residents complained almost immediately about the smell, taste, and appearance of the tap water, but still, officials insisted that it was safe. Over 100,000 people were exposed to dangerous lead levels, including thousands and thousands of children. Lead poisoning can cause lifelong developmental and health problems, which means the impact of the decision will be felt for generations to come. So, this topic will be about key holders and how they played a big part in this decision making. Several groups were central to this crisis. State-appointed emergency managers had control over Flint's finances and authorized the switch. They didn't do their due diligence about treating the water before they gave it to the citizens. The Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency were supposed to regulate water safety, but they both failed to act decisively. Local residents were the ones most affected by this drastic change, and most of them were from low incomes, and the majority of them were African Americans. Civil society also stepped up. Scientists like Mark Edwards from Virginia Tech and pediatricians exposed the truth when the government denied there was a problem. Advocacy groups and media amplified their findings and eventually forced this to national attention because it was more so of a city crisis, but these figures really brought the attention to the public and to the rest of the country, because if it happened to them, it can happen to any one of us in a different city. This shows how interconnection public administration is when the government fails. Citizens, experts, and advocates have to step in and make it known so that we don't go through these repercussions and these events again. So, this becomes a big ethical issue. The Flint case highlights several major ethical issues. First, transparency was ignored. They did not have communication with the public. They tried to hide the fact that the water was contaminated and that they didn't do any treatment before. Officials withheld test results, altered reports, and dismissed community concerns. Secondly, accountability was missing. Local, state, and federal agencies all pointed fingers at one another instead of taking responsibility and making change for the mistakes. Third, equality was violated. Flint is majority African American, low income city, and many argue that the crisis lasted as long as it did because of environmental racism. Because of this, the residents had less political power than the wealthier communities. Finally, public trust was destroyed. Once residents realized that they had been lied to, faith in the government institutions collapsed completely. This wasn't just a mistake, it was more of a moral failure and undermined the basic relationship between citizens and their government. Inside 6, I will be connecting the theoretical lens to this case. So both authors, Holzer and Schweitzer, provide the frameworks that help us analyze these failures. From a utilitarian perspective, leaders justify the switch as cost-saving measures, arguing that it would be beneficial towards the city financially. They prioritized monetary gains for the health and well-being of their citizens. But this ignored the enormous harm to residents. They ignored their health, showing a minus of utilitarian thinking. From a deontological perspective, public officials have a duty to protect the citizens and their safety, which was not a priority in Flint. Regardless of the financial pressures, their main priority should have been to protect the lives and well-beings of these citizens. Finally, the role of the whistleblower is important. Scientists and doctors reveal the truth when officials would not. A whistleblower is essentially somebody who outs a higher power for the crimes, and basically they just tell on, in this case, the government, but you can be a whistleblower within your own company. Anywhere where there's a higher position of power that is wrong, and that is doing wrong towards you. Well, this shows that outside voices sometimes have to hold administrators accountable when internal ethics is collapsing. I think this is really important for us to learn now that we're going into our adulthood years, especially because we should be super involved in our local governments because they affect us directly. The federal government is a little harder to be involved in. You can keep up with the news, but a lot of information can be skewed. So, the lessons for public administration. The lessons public administrators can learn from Flint is first, transparency is essential. Even when the information is incomplete, it honestly helps to rebuild trust and almost reinforces the public's trust in you when you include, even if it's something bad, at least the public is aware. Secondly, ethical decision making must put the health and safety above everything else, more so than financial or political concerns, which was not done in this case. Third, accountability must be clear. Citizens should know exactly who is responsible for what. In this case, they spent time, instead of taking accountability as an entity, they spent time pointing the fingers at one another. And finally, the citizens' engagement is critical and crucial for this to work. Residents knew something was wrong, but their voices were completely ignored. Ethical governance means respecting the lived experiences of the people who you serve. The lessons aren't just for Flint, but they apply to every administrator who makes decisions affecting communities. In slide number 9, we can see the broader implications. Flint is not an isolated case. Across the United States, poor and minority groups often face higher risk of environmental harm from toxic waste sites to unsafe infrastructure rather than wealthier neighborhoods. This raises the issue of environmental justice, ensuring that all communities, regardless of race, gender, income, are equally protected. Just as much as a wealthy person is protected, a lower income community should just be protected as well. Flint demonstrates how fragile democracy is. Once a citizen loses faith that their government will protect them, legitimacy suffers tremendously. The broader implication is clear. Ethics are not optional in an administration. They are essential for protecting both people's lives and democratic system itself. To conclude, the Flint water crisis is a reminder of the consequences of ignoring ethics in public administration. Holzer and Schweitzer's framework show us why the crisis happened. Over cost saving was a priority over the duty and responsibility of the government. and the truth only came out because of whistleblowers. Without these essential whistleblowers, they would have done nothing about it and continued to harm people for generations. The key lesson is that public welfare must always come first. Ethical governance is not just a theory, it's the only way to ensure the government serves and protects its people. If ethics are ignored, the result is a disaster and can lead to generational problems within our own communities. If ethics are prioritized, government can build trust, protect communities, and strengthen democracy. So thank you guys so much for your patience and participating with me throughout this project. I hope that we all learn the importance of not only being a part of our local government, but also understanding that the decisions that they do make directly affect us, the people. And the sooner we can band together as a community, the faster that problems that we see within our local government can be fixed and upheld.